700 military bases across North America harbor a silent threat that's been brewing for decades. Today, we're diving into the alarming story of toxic contamination at military installations and the growing health crisis that's only now coming to light.
And it's not just a matter of old waste. We're talking about chemicals that literally don't break down in the environment. They're called forever chemicals for a reason.
Let's start with the basics. What exactly are we dealing with here?
Well, the main culprits are PFAS, per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances. They've been used extensively in firefighting foams on military bases since the 1960s. Every time there was a training exercise or emergency response, these chemicals would seep into the soil and groundwater.
And I understand these aren't just isolated incidents?
Not at all. The Department of Defense has identified 723 military installations where PFAS may have been used or released. That's an absolutely staggering number.
723 bases? That's incredible.
And here's what makes it worse. These chemicals are incredibly persistent. They don't break down naturally in the environment, which means they can continue affecting communities for generations.
Let's talk about some specific cases. What are we seeing on the ground?
Take CFB Moose Jaw in Saskatchewan. Veterans and civil servants there have reported clusters of illnesses that they believe are linked to contamination on the base.
What kind of illnesses are we talking about?
The research shows increased risks for several types of cancer, particularly kidney and testicular cancer. There's also evidence of immune system suppression and thyroid disorders.
That's deeply concerning. How are authorities responding to this?
Well, in April 2024, the EPA set the first national drinking water limits for 5 specific PFAS compounds. They're requiring public water systems, including those serving military installations, to test for these chemicals.
But is testing enough? What about actual cleanup efforts?
That's where it gets complicated. The Department of Defense is currently conducting cleanup operations, and they're planning to phase out PFAS-containing firefighting foams by October 2025.
You know what's striking to me? This isn't just about active military bases.
Exactly. Take South Patrick Shores in Florida. It's a civilian neighborhood now, but it was once a military dumping ground. They're literally finding military waste in people's backyards.
Wait, in their backyards?
Yes. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is actually digging up yards in the neighborhood right now. They've found everything from ammunition to chemical containers buried underground.
That must be terrifying for residents.
It is. And there's a documented pattern of rare cancers in that community dating back to 1967. One resident found lead, bullets, and even a partially full oil barrel in their yard.
How did this happen? How did we end up with such widespread contamination?
Well, before 1980, there was very little environmental oversight. Military bases would simply cover waste with soil, sometimes as little as 1 foot deep.
Just covered it with dirt?
Yes, and these weren't just ordinary wastes. We're talking about paint thinners, solvents, explosives, and various toxic chemicals used in military operations.
And I imagine all of that eventually seeps into the groundwater?
Exactly. And once these chemicals enter the groundwater system, they can spread far beyond the original contamination site.
Let's talk about the health impacts. What are doctors and researchers seeing?
The VA is currently conducting studies to determine if there is a relationship between PFAS exposure during military service and kidney cancer among veterans.
And what would that mean for veterans if they establish that link?
It could lead to kidney cancer being classified as a presumptive service-connected condition, which means veterans wouldn't need to prove their service caused the condition to receive VA benefits.
That would be significant for many veterans.
Absolutely. And it's not just kidney cancer. Studies have shown that veterans from certain bases have a 35% higher rate of multiple myeloma, that's bone marrow cancer, than the general population.
35%? That's a dramatic increase.
And what's particularly concerning is that many of these health effects may not show up for years or even decades after exposure.
So we might not even know the full extent of the problem yet?
That's right. And it's not just the military personnel. Civilian workers and families living on or near these bases are also at risk.
What about current safety measures? What's being done to protect people now?
Well, the EPA's new drinking water standards are a start. They're requiring testing for specific PFAS compounds and setting strict limits on acceptable levels.
But these chemicals are still in use, right?
Yes, though that's changing. The Department of Defense is working to phase out PFAS-containing firefighting foams by late 2025.
That seems like a long time given what we know about the risks.
It is, but they need to ensure they have effective alternatives in place. Fire safety is still crucial for military operations.
Let's talk about cleanup efforts. What's involved in that process?
It's incredibly complex. Take South Patrick Shores. They're using ground-penetrating radar to locate buried waste, then carefully excavating and testing soil samples.
And this is happening in residential neighborhoods?
Yes, they're literally digging 8-foot deep trenches in people's yards. The initial phase alone is expected to take 6 months.
What about the cost? Who's paying for all this?
The South Patrick Shores project alone is costing $5.8 million, and that's just one small area. The total cleanup costs across all affected bases will be astronomical.
And I imagine this isn't just a US problem?
Not at all. The U.S. maintains about 800 military bases in more than 70 countries, and many face similar contamination issues.
So this is really a global environmental crisis.
Exactly. And because these chemicals don't break down, it's a crisis that could affect generations to come unless we take decisive action now.
What can be done to prevent similar situations in the future?
Well, the EPA's new regulations are a start. They're not just setting limits, they're also requiring reporting of large spills and releases of these chemicals.
But is that enough?
Honestly, we need a complete paradigm shift in how we handle potentially toxic materials in military operations. Prevention is far more effective than cleanup.
What about accountability? Who's responsible when these problems are discovered?
That's complicated. Multiple lawsuits have been filed against both chemical manufacturers and the federal government, but these cases can take years to resolve.
And meanwhile, people continue to be exposed.
Yes, which is why the VA's current studies are so important. They could lead to faster access to healthcare and benefits for affected veterans.
What should people do if they're concerned about contamination in their area?
The EPA now maintains public databases of contaminated sites, and many states offer water quality testing services. It's important to stay informed and advocate for testing if you live near a current or former military installation.
This really highlights the long-term consequences of our environmental decisions, doesn't it?
Absolutely. These forever chemicals are showing us that what we do today can affect communities for generations to come.
As we wrap up, what's the most important thing for our listeners to understand about this issue?
I think it's that this isn't just a military problem or an environmental problem. It's a public health crisis that affects all of us, whether we've served in the military or not.
And it's one that won't go away on its own.
No, it won't. But awareness is the first step toward change, and that's why conversations like this one are so important.
Remember, environmental justice isn't just about cleaning up the past. It's about protecting our future. Thanks for listening.